Hello, everybody. This is RVN Television, and this is CEO Chat, Friday at 10:30. My name is Cini.
Joe Asumendi here.
And we are interviewing Bill Prinzivalli. And this is a great guy. I mean, we have great guests, and I've had a chance to talk to Bill, and he is among the top 10, I would say.
Okay.
And just in terms of his experience and his background, and also a very unique approach he has to dealing with people in a business in order to get things done. So you're the principal of Prinzivalli Consulting.
I am.
And let's start by talking about what it is you do.
Sure.
And then we'll start connecting you with all the people out there who could benefit by getting to know you.
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks. Thanks, Al, Joe. Good to be here.
Sure. Great pleasure.
So I do business consulting, executive coaching, organizational consulting, etc. I mean, I've had my own businesses. I started 4 businesses of my own. I've been in business longer than I will admit to, all right? And I've consulted a lot. So what I'd like to do now is to help organizations, move towards their goal, but I want to tell them that they have resources that they're just not using, right? And I've always had difficulty explaining this. So recently, just in the last month, as I was reading through, I was doing some writing, I found a phrase that I'm using in a book that I think works well. And that is, I want people to access and discover their inner Olympian.
Oh, I remember you using that phrase in our pre-interview. That's interesting.
Because when I tell people about right brain, intuitive, nonlinear functionality, et cetera, and they look at me with glass eyes,
Sure.
Yeah. But if you talk about an Olympian, I mean, what's the image we get? First, absolute excellence. The elite of the elite in their skill, in their craft, whether it's skiing, jumping, et cetera.
Right.
But then what do we see them do before the run? We see them trying to get into the zone.
Right.
We see them meditating, quieting their mind, visualizing the run, and they have to develop self-trust and self-confidence. I mean, if you're going down a slope like on the luge at 100 miles an hour, you better have self-confidence.
Sure.
So, but the point is, they use a lot of nonlinear characteristics to get into the zone, to maximize their performance, and that's what I want to help people do.
Well, what I like about what you're saying right off the bat is that everybody thinks that competence is what they should be shooting for, and when they engage consultants like you, it's to try to build their competency in a certain area. But we all know, as older gentlemen, older people, especially in business, seasoned veterans,
Seasoned citizens.
That's a good way to put it. I like this. But we all know, because we've been around the block a couple of times, there is a level of excellence above competence.
That's right.
And if you're working with the right consultant, you can achieve that level. You don't have to settle for just being good at something. You can settle for being remarkable or outstanding at something. Not even settling. And that reach is what you help people with.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. I've never said it specifically that way. But that's a great way to say it, because what most people do is they just work harder at their skills. Try to get another 5% out of their sales or out of their work, or work an extra 30 minutes a day.
That's your classic Six Sigma.
Right.
How do I squeeze more out of this?
So I'm saying, instead of doing that, go over here. You've got a whole areas that you're never taught. We're not taught about these nonlinear getting into the zone type of things, intuitive processes. We're not taught that in colleges. We're not taught that at our work. We're not taught that anywhere. So I'm saying you have a whole section of resources. It used to be attributed to the right hemisphere of the brain. Right. Neuroscience now says that's not exactly true. But the point is,
people still think that way, and so there's a creative side to you, and there's a linear thinking side to you.
So instead of squeezing out another 2% here, you got a whole area here that's probably untapped.
So your point is the singles and doubles are on one side of your brain, and you can hit more and more singles and doubles if you want. Or you can turn on the other side of your brain and go for the home run for a change.
That's right.
And that's kind of exciting.
In fact, I thought you were going to give a tennis reference. But if it's a tennis reference, I don't know if you remember Boris Becker.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right. He would say the 5th set of any match has nothing to do with your skill. It has all to do with your mind.
Seriously?
Seriously, that's what he would say. And that's what elite athletes try to do. I mean, we've all seen that. They try to get into the zone. And to get into the zone, they have to quiet the mind, stop the chatter, try to go deep into themselves, their deeper inner wisdom, and bring that out. And that's what the 5th set of tennis is about. That's what the best Olympians do. That's all the best athletes do. When you see Michael Jordan shooting 3-pointers, remember that remember that player? He just kept shooting. Everyone said, I don't know what I'm doing.
How is that possible?
Yeah,
I know.
because he was in his zone.
Well, and so you've got somebody like Joe I like to pick on you, and I know, really. You got somebody like my buddy Joe here, and he's got a business, and the business is operating at a certain level.
Yeah.
Has.
Right.
It's struggling, because all businesses are at some level.
Yeah.
And he hires you.
Right.
And the reason why he hires you is because he doesn't just want a 3% bump. He would really like to find out what it is he needs to do to take his business to that next level everybody always talks about.
Yeah.
Where do you start with Joe? How does that conversation start?
Okay, it's a great question, and it's not an easy one to answer. All right, because
Especially with Joe.
Especially with Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known him 5 minutes now, Joe, and I
Picked it
can
up
see
immediately.
already you're going to be trouble. Right? So it's not easy because if I was just a coach that learned a specific technique, I would come in with that technique. Okay, that's fine. If I learned a different technique in consulting, if I worked for Anderson years ago, I would come in with that technique.
Right.
All right, but that's very limited. Right, so I come in with a very wide, broad approach, and I don't know which of these techniques I'm going to use. I have no idea whether it's going to be business strategies, intuitive work, personal issues, etc. So the first thing I want to do is connect with you. I want to say, Joe, let's connect here, right? And let's create some chemistry between us so that we could create something. So to do that, I have to first get into my best self, my deepest inner wisdom, almost a meditative state, to really tune in. Then I want to connect with you, all right? And then I'm going to invite you to try to get to that space just by talking to you, et cetera, just as we're doing now, sort of connecting, creating some chemistry, et cetera, and then ask you deeply, what's going on, Joe, right? What's your biggest issue? Now, if you have a business issue, we'll talk about that. But then once we finish that business issue, I'll say, okay, let's put that aside now. Let's talk about you, all right? What's really going on? What's a deeper issue, if there is one? Do you have some resistance about something? Is there an issue of confidence? What's really going on? And then I can go to a lot of different places. But once we connect in that way, magic can happen. You can find solutions and answers you never thought possible. So that's how I do it. And like I said, it's tough to describe on paper or even now. That's the best I could do.
Well, how does engagement work with you? I'm very interested, like you're saying, how do you do this? Is this like a one-on-one session for a while, or just how does it go?
I prefer one-on-one sessions, all right? Because in a one-on-one session, it's easier for both of us to be vulnerable and open to each other. If you're in a group, everybody's protected.
Right.
If we're one-on-one in a safe environment, you get comfortable with me, we can both relax, be a little open, be vulnerable, and get to the deeper issues, and then start working on them. And those are the things that are probably really preventing the success that you want.
Really, and those are, and then if it makes sense to pull in other members of my team, we'll do that once I'm comfortable with you, and that'll be how we grow the engagement to a point where everybody gets to be excellent.
Yes, and in fact, one of the things I can do with the group, besides all of the things I've been discussing now, is improvisational workshops. All right, because
that was an interesting area that I remember we talked about that. Talk about the whole idea that somehow that next level of excellence could be something unexpected and even fun.
Right.
Is not something your typical business executive thinks, So how do you approach that?
Okay. Well, first of all, people think improv is just about fun, and maybe they'll say, okay, team building. Instead of going off on a weekend, let's have a group thing.
Right.
Of course it does that. But it does a lot more than that, because improv, I was surprised when I started doing improv, the values that it has. It's phenomenal. Because number one, if you and I, Joe, are on stage, right, we've got no lines, right? There's an audience there, right? What I have to do, if you're starting the improv, I have to listen deeply to you.
Right.
Because if I don't listen to you, I got nothing.
That's right.
And not just the words, but the sentiment under the words. All right? Because if you say something like, oh, I love you, the audience is going to hear that that's not accurate.
Yeah.
And if I don't address that, they're going to say, hey, wait a minute. They're going to be dissatisfied.
Right.
So I have to address the sentiment under the words. Then I have to feel what impact that has on me. Am I angry, or is it fun? Are we buddies? And is it fun? Or do I feel betrayed? Do I feel surprised? Whatever. And then incorporate an authentic response with that emotion. Okay? So that's what I call the conscious communication cycle.
Right.
And then you do the same thing. So that's how we do an improv on stage. But to answer your question, how do I use that in a workshop? What I would do, which I have done with CEOs, is I say, okay, we're going to spend 2 or 3 hours with your group, and yes, it's going to be team building, it's going to be fun, and they're going to, all of that, yes.
Sure.
But what are your specific issues? You know, what is the team having problems with? Some of them might say they're so stressed out, they can't say no to the clients. They'll tell me exactly what it is, and then I will create a program specifically for that. Like if they can't say no to the clients, I'll have some exercises to express that, to work that through so that they can feel comfortable. For salespeople, for example, sometimes they don't shut up, right? I mean, you know how the old
We've heard.
right? Once the customer says yes, shut up, right? So some people have trouble doing that. I'll work with that. A lot of people have trouble in conversations with silence. If there's that awkward pause, somebody jumps in and usually says something stupid.
Got it.
So there are plenty of exercises based on what you tell me your team needs that I will design, and in 2 to 3 hours we'll go through all of that, and they'll have an experiential experience of it, not just a mental
Not
understanding.
just mental, but they feel it. It's something they feel.
That's right.
Which is that right brain thing again. It's your emotional base.
Right.
You know, as you're talking, I'm thinking big factor holding people back and being more successful than they are. It's not that they're failures, it's just that they're not reaching some goal that they imagine they could reach. Is that they're afraid of that.
That's right.
And one of the real advantages to the improv experience is that you learn not to be afraid of unexpected things.
Exactly.
Surprises don't have to be frightening.
That's right.
And you know, this translates to an issue that I know an awful lot of CEOs have, which is they're afraid to talk to their people. A lot of CEOs are reluctant to walk the floor and meet people because a random conversation with somebody may not go the way I expect it.
Yes.
And I'm afraid I'm not prepared enough for that. You follow me?
I do.
You work with people who have that problem.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
Everything's uncertain.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and improv is all about uncertainty.
Well, you don't know where this is going to go.
You have no idea what you're going to say. You have no idea where it's going. So the practice of improv practices in that environment that I'm talking about will help people have greater confidence in themselves, be less concerned about uncertainty, all right? Not be concerned about, awkward pauses, and have a connection. Because in an improv, we have to have a connection. And this CEO that's walking around, he's afraid to have a connection with these people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to teach him how to do that, and then be okay with whatever the result is. So if the employee has a problem, okay, listen to it. Listen to it.
Yeah.
Be empathetic.
Don't feel like you have to offer a solution for every
right.
problem you hear.
That's right.
Because that's where you'll get yourself jammed up.
Right.
That's right. There's 2 parts to that. One part is to be empathetic and feel and understand what they're saying. The second part is to act on it.
Right.
So you don't need to do the second part immediately, but do the first part. People are afraid to do that first part because they're afraid of what that second part might entail.
Right.
But just do the first part. Listen, be empathetic, be understanding. Say, wow, I hear you. Let me think about it.
And that, and if you can, I mean, we're going to explore other aspects of your background. But the part where you help people become people,
Yeah.
and not just CEOs, but actually, I think that's a major connection with people that are watching. And who is it in a company that typically calls you? Is it typically the owner of the company or a manager in the company?
Yeah, I like to work with the owner of a company. If it's a small company, I like to work with the owner, CEO, to work with them first. Because this is not about teaching your people what to do. It's first teaching you what to do, and then your people. I mean, there's some CEOs that they're bringing people, say, okay, go work with my staff. Go work. No, it's about you. Yeah, first is you, then it's everybody else.
Right.
So yeah, I'll work with a CEO typically, and work with them one-on-one, work with their issues, etc. In other cases, I work with clients that are vice presidents in larger organizations, and they're having issues because they're having trouble. Maybe they merged into a larger company. They're having issues in translate. So there, I'll work with them, and that'll be a little bit more on the business side, a little bit more on the human relations side, interpersonal dynamic side, and I'll work with them in that arena. So that's why I say come to me, tell me what your problem is. I got a lot of tools in the bag.
So, I mean, the issue that people are facing is we feel as though there's a level of performance that we could achieve. It's just that we feel as though there may be some things holding us back. We may not even know what they are.
That's right.
So I call Bill Prinzivalli, and we make an appointment. We have a conversation on the phone. We start working together. Your job is to help me. Half the time, the barriers are invisible to me. They're in my blind spot.
That's right.
Help me see what the barriers are.
Exactly.
And then one by one, we remove those barriers. And that's how all of a sudden we don't just go up 30% or 15% or 20%. We go up maybe 150, 200%.
After that,
That's where the breakthroughs are.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. It's like taking that Olympian and just unleashing the power that's inside of them.
Yeah,
You're unleashing the talent that's in there, because there's usually something blocking it, right? So, yeah, unleash, and everybody's got gold and genius in them to come out. And
Right.
my goal is I want to do that for everyone. Could you imagine if everyone in your organization expresses themselves to their maximum ability? That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, to tap into something like that is an amazing thing. We need to take a break,
Sure.
but when we come back, I want to talk with you, Bill, about your background in business. So if I
Okay,
hire
sure.
you, yeah, you're going to work with me personally, but I have business issues too.
I know.
And
Okay.
you know, where does that background take us? So
Absolutely.
We'll be back with more of Bill Prinzivalli on CEO Chat right after this.
We're back.
We are back with more CEO Chat with Bill Prinzivalli of Prinzivalli Consulting.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, before the break, Joe, we were talking about how Bill helps business leaders, not just CEOs, but managers inside of larger companies,
Right.
identify the obstacles that are holding them back, and then he uses very innovative, creative techniques to help them overcome them. But every now and then, somebody comes to you with an actual practical business problem. So talk about your background in business and how that
Okay, sure.
informs what you do.
As I said before, I've been in business longer than I will admit to. All right, I'll just say
Go ahead and admit it.
Over 40 years. Let's just say that.
400 years for Joe.
Okay,
Not a problem.
Joe, you look great. I do.
Doesn't he?
Take care of myself.
This is
How does
Mr. Fezziwig.
how does
Everybody
he do
wondered
that?
where he went. He is Mr. Fezziwig.
I want to take what he's taking.
Go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I started my career as a mathematician, then a computer programmer, then I went into management, then I went into sales of computer software. Then I created my own business, which was development of computer software for IBM mainframes that back in the day. Right? So before that, I worked for large companies, small companies. I saw all the dynamics. Right? But so I started my own company back then, and had that from '86 to oh my God, at least about 20 years. And we built it up very nicely to about a $10 million company annually. Had 19 international distributors around the world, and sold thousands of products.
Nice.
Y2K software, et cetera. And then when that was over, I started 3 other companies. One was a products company, sort of medical products that we were selling. Another one was for ambulance squads. A friend of mine wrote a software program for ambulance squads to do all of their tracking, incident reporting, et cetera. It was fabulous.
Interesting.
Fabulous. We were really successful in New Jersey. We were going to all the volunteer ambulance squads, and we were getting popular. Said, this is great, this is great. And then the state gave a version of someone else's software for free. So we said, okay.
So that's it. Okay.
move
Guess we
on,
have
move
to
on.
find something else to do. That's okay.
Right.
When the elephant stands, you got to find a different place to stand. That's just the way it is. I know.
I like that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that. And then I've been consulting since then for the last 20 years. You know, all sorts of companies, large companies, small companies. Sometimes I'll take a company, for example. You talk about the business side. There was a company recently for a CEO that was very successful, but they were getting really overloaded. So they were recommended bringing a COO, all right? So I came in as a consultant. I laid out a program for them for 18 months where I needed to reorganize different departments, bring in new IT, bring in new marketing, bring in new branding, et cetera, from soup to nuts. I did all of that. I also, we also hired a financial manager, created reporting for the whole organization so they had better reporting. I helped them eventually for the exit strategy, which is what the ultimate goal with the M&M.
Build value.
Yeah, so I did that. So basically, we increased, helped them increase the size of the company, the sales of the company, the reach of the company, so that it would be primed for sale. And we sold it, and we sold it successfully.
Great.
So there's a great example of, I was able to use all of my business skills, from A to Z, from marketing to sales to management to, mergers, acquisitions, et cetera.
Yeah, that's an important point to make for people that are out there watching. Yes, you have an innovative, interesting way of dealing with people as people, and people are an important part of your value proposition. But you also bring sales and marketing background, business operations background, digital. You know, there are an awful lot of companies out there struggling with digitization, making the transition from whatever it was they were to this new digital world. A big part of that problem, it's not the software or the technology, it's the uptake of the technology by the people who work in the company. You've got it and it's available, but are people using it? Are they afraid of it? Have you rolled this out in a way that encourages people to embrace it and not run from it? You can help with that.
Yeah, as I said, I've been in business for a long time, large companies, small companies, and I think that was a good example, this recent one. It was a 4-year project. That was a recent one that really tapped into all of my business abilities. I said, no, this is fun.
Yeah.
I get to use some of my marketing skills, some of my business skills, operation skills, people skills, direct. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
That's a good thing.
Consulting is a kind of a crowded field, Bill. How do you distinguish yourself from your competitors?
Oh, such a great question. The biggest thing I like to say is that I don't use one technique. You know, like I remember years ago, the Anderson folks, they used to come in, put one template onto people, and, you know, if it sticks, it sticks.
Right.
The best way I could describe it is that I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, I've learned a lot. So I've got a wide breadth of what I can do for you, all right? And I don't say that, you know, I try to be humble about it because it's not because I'm smarter than anybody else, but it's just because I've been around longer.
Well, because you're curious. Curiosity has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
You'll
that's a
stick
good
your
point.
nose in if that's what it takes.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of things in my life.
Sure, that's a
so
good
I like
thing.
to come and like to offer that because, you know, I want to help you, you know. I want to help you be the best you can be and your company because I've had companies of my own and I know how frustrating it is when I can't get to where I want to be. So I like to help folks do that. So yeah, I have a lot of tools in my bag that I can use.
Excellent.
And I really care about the people. I really want to connect, as I was talking about before. I really want to connect, create some chemistry and connect the flow so that I can somehow try to get you to be the best you can be. That makes me happy.
That's a great, and I'm going to follow up on Joe's question because it was a great question. You're an author. You're in the process of finishing a book.
That's
I know
right.
you've been writing.
Yeah.
Why don't you spend a few minutes talking about that?
Sure. I'm writing a book. It's called Improvisational Leaders. I just sent the last editing to the publisher. I hope it's the last editing. I'm tired of reading my own book, honestly.
You always say it's the last editing, and then it comes back. But
Yeah,
no, I know. It's good.
So it'll be out in springtime. Now, this is a book, actually, I started to write in the 90s. Because in the 90s, I used to teach classes where I called it Business Success Through Inner Wisdom. And there I was trying to teach business people how to use their right brain. Intuition, creativity, yoga, you know, all of that. Mindfulness, all of the mindfulness techniques that I learned, I wanted to help them with that so they can integrate that with their left brain and have better solution. I didn't write the book back then, but I wrote it in 2020. And in fact, it was originally going to be a book about improvisation applied to this professor's process. Long story short, improv would have helped her process, and her process is pretty popular. It's called Giving Voice to Values, Dr. Gentili, and it's used in universities, and she has it on 5 continents, including many corporations. And I had a wonderful conversation with her, and she said, yeah, improv would help that process because it would give them more confidence. They have more conviction when they're talking to their managers, like when the managers ask them to do something immoral. You know, we're teaching them how to say, hey, you know,
Maybe that's not a great idea.
That's right.
Good.
And want to teach them that they have a choice. So that was the book. And so I wrote that version of the book. But then when it came out, it was too long. I had so much information about the mindfulness and the improv, et cetera. And we had a wonderful discussion. And they said, you know what, why don't you write that book first, since it's already written, and then, you know, write hours later.
Right.
So I said, fine. So I just sort of changed it in 2021. 1/3 of it I modified to apply all of these techniques to business in general.
That's a big deal.
So that's the book.
Great.
So it talks about mindfulness, it talks about improvisation, it talks about meditation, how you can develop and condition, going back to the Olympiad. You want to condition yourself. You want to condition yourself to understand how to use the right brain, how to incorporate it into your daily work so that you'll make better decisions.
Taking that theory and putting it into practice, think differently. And if you can learn to think differently, then different things will happen for you.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what people want. Okay, this has been a terrific, spirited 30-minute conversation. I know it's one of the fastest 30 minutes in television, especially with a guest like you. People out there who own businesses, it doesn't matter whether it's manufacturing or service, for-profit or not-for-profit.
No.
It's, you know, if you want to be connected to the world in a new and a kind of an innovative way, you should reach out and get a hold of Bill Prinzivalli. There's your camera. Bill, take a
Okay.
look right in your camera and tell everybody the best way to reach you and where they can go to get more information.
Sure. My name is Bill Prinzivalli, as you know, and I have two current websites. One is called billprinzivalli.com. That's mostly the business side of what I do. A newer website is about improvisation and how it can help you. And that website can be reached on BP Improv, like my initials, bpimprov.com. And on there, you'll see my email addresses, my phone numbers, and I'll be happy to speak with you about any issue you might have.
And this is, believe me, this is a guy you want to speak with. It's always engaging, always fun. Great guy to talk to, and he loaded with information based on many years of experience. And thank you for joining us today on CEO Chat, Bill. It was such a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And they can learn about your books on those two websites.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So,
Joe,
Pleasure,
it's a
Bill.
pleasure.
My pleasure.
great. And thanks all of you for joining us on this terrific CEO Chat. My name is Cini,
Yep, Joe Asumendi here as usual.
and we'll be back whether you like it or not next Friday.
Yeah, we will.
With another CEO Chat.
Yes, we will.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, have a good weekend.